Tom Tugendhat.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I suggest that we are in a somewhat through the looking glass world? Because over the last few hours, we've heard some very clear questions from the Honourable Member for Kenilworth, who's no longer in his place, who has explained that we're going through a circular argument of legal intervention that comes to absolutely no response.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I believe we have entered a strange and upside-down world in this chamber. Over the last few hours we heard clear and serious questions from the member for Kenilworth, who pointed out that we are stuck in a circular loop of legal processes that produce no real outcome. Yet on the other side of this house all we hear are rehearsed statements and scripted lines repeated again and again. Members stand and say they rise to speak as though the words alone give weight to what follows. That phrase may belong elsewhere, but it keeps being used here, and perhaps that is fitting because it highlights how absurd this place has started to feel.
Yet on the other side, all we're hearing is the ChatGPT-generated press releases. I rise to speak, I rise to speak, I rise to speak. ChatGPT knows you're there, but that is an Americanism that we don't use. But still, keep using it, because it makes it clear that this place has become absurd. This building, this chamber, is a waste of time, a complete waste of time. When our electors hear, and our fellow citizens hear, that actually we've listened to the arguments of Mauritius, we've listened to the arguments of China, we've listened to the arguments of India and the United States, but we're not willing to listen to the arguments of Britain.
When the public listen to these debates, they hear that we are ready to consider the arguments of other nations from Europe to Asia to America. But when it comes to listening to the arguments of Britain, we suddenly fall silent. We hesitate to stand up for our own people. We refuse to look seriously at the strategic needs of our own national defence. A sovereign government exists to protect its interests and to speak for its citizens. That should be the duty of any administration. Yet today that responsibility seems to have been abandoned. Instead of standing firm, this government retreats the moment it is challenged. The public see leaders stepping back rather than stepping forward. That is why so many people across the country feel frustrated and disconnected. They watch governments change, yet policies remain the same. They hear different voices but the same outcomes.
We're not willing to stand up for the interests of the British people. We're not willing to look at the strategic interests of UK defence. It is the job of sovereign governments, I thought it was the job of our government, clearly not this government, to stand up for our interests. But instead, this government does something quite different. Instead, what this government does, the moment it's challenged, is to run away. Brave Sir Keir bravely turned his tail and fled. This is why the British people feel so disenchanted at the moment. Because we see changes of government and no changes of policy. We see a continuation and simply the whip's briefings coming out again. We see simply the pointlessness of democracy in this place because, frankly, we might as well not bother being here. The Foreign Office stitched this one up. The Minister can't even change the judgment, and he's sacrificed everything on the whims of an international process that has no interest to the British people.
Briefings are recycled and debates go in circles while nothing meaningful is resolved. The British people are losing faith because they sense that democracy inside this building is becoming hollow. They look at Parliament and wonder what purpose it truly serves if decisions appear to be stitched up elsewhere. If ministers cannot alter outcomes and are unwilling to fight for national priorities, then what message does that send to voters who put their trust in this institution? We are told that international processes must come first and that external pressures dictate our actions. Cooperation with allies matters, but it should never replace the responsibility to defend our own interests. Our foreign policy should be shaped by what is right for this country, not by fear of challenge or by the convenience of following others. When ministers refuse to confront difficult judgments and instead sacrifice leverage at the first sign of opposition, it leaves the public wondering who is really in charge. People want leadership, not avoidance. They want clarity, not confusion. They want representatives who speak plainly and act decisively rather than hiding behind procedures and endless reviews. If this House continues down this path, the sense of disillusionment will only deepen. Citizens expect those elected to fight for them, to scrutinize decisions properly, and to place national interests at the center of every debate. That is what democratic accountability looks like, and without it the distance between Parliament and the people will only continue to grow.